Okay, so this is the final... Sorry. Okay, so this is the final overview of my EU4 ideas guide run. I'm just going to run through what ideas I picked quickly and where I started. And then show a time lapse. So I actually started here in the in this settlement right here, and I named myself Old Prussia. Made myself Prussian culture, all that jazz. I only used 674 points. I put my family as the von Habsburgs just because. Just had the names random. Had my starting ruler as a 666. Gave him the careful trait, the scholar trait, and the inspiring leader trait. Had my heir at age 0, also as a 666, and had my wife as a 666 with the careful trait just in case. My culture was Prussian. I started as a Catholic nation, Western technology. I started as an empire with the Prussian monarchy government reform. And then these are my ideas. I started with cost to fabricate claims and aggressive expansion impact. Both of those as my first two traditions, so that I could easily expand in this area and not provoke a lot of aggressive expansion. Then I reduced my core construction cost, my culture conversion cost, my militarization of state, because I'm Prussian monarchy, and that's really good. Morale of armies, discipline, governing capacity, because the Prussian monarchy reform actually means you have minus 50% governing capacity, so that's kind of needed. And then administrative efficiency, because that's good, and reduce land maintenance for that. And yeah, that's that was my starting province. That's the background of the nation. Now I'm gonna go do the time lapse. So as you can see, it is only April of 1698, and I do have the achievement. Right, so here's the timeline. I'm going to take it pretty slow so I can go through the events. I immediately began improving relations with Austria so I could join the Holy Roman Empire. I did have to reset a couple of times because I wanted the Teutonic Order to keep these two provinces, and I wanted Poland to not get Lithuania in a personal union. So I did have to reset the run a couple times. I think I first I joined the Holy Roman Empire, and then I took these provinces from Wolgast, because that was my easiest expansion point. I improved relations with Brandenburg to get them as an ally. I did the same with Bohemia. So that war was against the Teutonic Order. I invaded them to make sure I got these provinces, which are needed for forming Prussia, because I was strong enough to do that at the time. During all this, I was also improving relations with France, Denmark, and Denmark at the time. I eventually allied both France and Denmark. Much later, I would ally Muscovy. That was the second war against the Teutonic Order. I think I expanded down here. At some point, I vassalized Riga. I don't remember when I did that, but I know I did that. That was that. So, I finished defeating Woltgast. Think? No, that's not what I want. Shit. At some point, I vassalized Lubeck as part of a war that I fought. I don't remember when I did that. It was around this time that Brandenburg's ruler passed away, and I just got Brandenburg in a personal union. So, that basically doubled my army size. It was also somewhere around this time that I got myself elected as Holy Roman Emperor briefly. Let's see. So I took Dismersen in a war. I gave that to my vassal Lubeck. I still have Brandenburg in a personal union. I think I have Riga as a vassal by this point. Poland defeated the Teutonic Order, but eventually I'll take that from Poland. Not yet. Got an alliance with France and Denmark. I think I already said that. The first ideas I went with were exploration ideas. But I couldn't reach the New World at this time because of lack of colonial range. I finished off whatever nation that was. I integrated Lubeck. Took that as well. Um, yes, that's what it was. Um, so that what just happened over here. This was when I was Emperor of the Holy Roman Empire. I did I did an imperial ban on Burgundy. Made them release a couple people up here, and took that province for myself because why not? And then shortly after, once the Protestant Reformation began happening, I I went to Protestantism, and you know what? I think it'll be easier if I. So at June 1505, can I just look at the timeline from here to show? Uh, maybe. I'll scroll through this quickly just so that if anyone wants to, they can read all the history. As you can see, I did lose a war against Norway. Um, I fought a colonial war with Sligo, took the Irish colony and vassalized them. But there's a way to look at the timeline from here. Those two wars I lost, those were coalition wars. The first one I threw my ally Bohemia under the bus, and the second one I couldn't throw my ally in the Netherlands under the bus, so I just returned a bunch of territory that I'd taken from the East Indies nations, because my truces with them were coming up on expiring anyway. There's a way to look at the time lapse from here. I took exploration ideas, then religious ideas, then expansion, quantity, because my biggest problem throughout most of this campaign was lack of manpower. I had great quality troops, I just didn't have a lot of them. Influence ideas and administrative ideas. I swear. Oh well, I'll just have to reload this and come back to Oh, maybe I'm thinking of if you go to 1821. A sincere thanks to whoever is watching. I only recently started streaming, and I didn't think people would actually watch for this long. Alright, so let's get back to the early 1500s. Alright, so yeah, by this point I was also allied with Muscovy. There is that. Um, um, oh yeah, that's right. I took a few things from Poland over here in a war, driving them back. I expanded Riga. I also vassalized the Livonian Order. Gave them back a bunch of territory. Then at some point, I was allied with Muscovy. Just waiting here. Was this when I was colonizing? No, not yet. Colonizing was later. I think at this point I was just waiting. Yeah, I was waiting for aggressive expansion to go down. Finally connected up most of my territory. Oh yeah. I didn't vassalize the Livonians. I just vassalized Riga. It was here where I annexed the Livonian Order. I am now Protestant by this point, of course, so I formed Prussia. I wasn't even colonizing yet. Wow. I'd expanded Brandenburg a little. Then at some point, Riga reformed into Kurland. They are still my vassal. Let's see, what else? Bohemia dragged me into quite a few wars with Poland. And I dragged them into a few wars with Poland just so that they wouldn't take any territory. Yes, I finally have a colony. I missed when I started that. I finally have a colony. This province right here was what Sligo was colonizing. So I took that in a colonial war and vassalized them. Gave me a nice hold here in Ireland. As you can see, the Netherlands formed. Yeah, Burgundy is Burgundy wasn't doing well. So I had that. Was I... Ah, yes, and I had expanded here for the colonial range, down here, and even down to the Cape of Good Hope, because you can earn a lot of money over here with trade companies and everything. So that my colony here, I would eventually name this colony Canada. That was basically my colony in the Americas for a while. I eventually colonized here, and that's about it. Oh, and I colonized down here. But mostly, after a certain point, I was focused out here. Back to Europe. I see Muscovy's very big there. They are my ally. They'll reform into Russia here shortly. Let's see, I think again I'm just waiting for aggressive expansion to die down. Yeah, so, I was just waiting for aggressive expansion to die down, colonizing, and, yeah, the Ottomans did this. The Ottomans were getting scary. As you can see, they have pushed a little further so far. But, yeah, the Ottomans did that. I went in for a few... it just happened before our eyes. My relationship with Denmark broke down at some point, because Sweden was being backed by Scotland for their independence. And, I think Austria was also backing them. I don't remember. But they were getting backed for independence, so I'm like, yeah, sorry, Denmark, you're out. The truce had expired. By this point, I do have full religious ideas. I rushed through that so I could get them as fast as possible. So this was a purging of heresy. Drove Denmark back, called France in on favors. I wasn't allied with the Netherlands yet. The Netherlands were still my enemy. But did that. That gave me a fair amount of aggressive expansion, but not enough for a coalition to actually fight. Continued colonizing out there. As you can see, France began colonizing. France is my ally, though, at this time. I colonized here. Was colonizing down here. Getting some of these islands. Working my way over here. Spain's colonizing there. Portugal's there. At some point here, I do push... I do invade... I invaded Kildare at some point. And that was the second time I invaded them. The first time I invaded them to take this off of Scotland. Russia has formed now. So Russia's my ally. France is my ally. I have long since not been Holy Roman Emperor by this point. Once I went Protestant, Austria became the emperor again. I still control Brandenburg. I forgot to mention this, but as you can see here, when I invaded Denmark for this, my overextension was really high, so I released Dismerson and gave them this. Also, I took Ostfriesland at some point, because that is one of the provinces for one of the Prussian missions. I have not finished that mission tree, by the way. And Verden was also my ally at this point. Or not ally. Verden was my vassal at this point. But it was after that war. While I was looking over here, I forgot to mention it. That's when Norway led the coalition, I think it was. Or maybe it was Saxony. I thought with Russia and France both helping me, you know, it would go a bit better. But we started losing. Bohemia actually was fully sieged down. And I threw Bohemia under the bus. I made them return this, and this, and this. I made Bohemia return these to Hungary, that to Austria, a few things over here to Austria, and release Glogau. I didn't give up anything. Oh, I also took that off Denmark. And then it was around... So the first coalition war. Russia's doing Russia. I re-annexed Dismerson. I drove the English back. And I didn't realize they had a colony at that time. But I would be dealing with that. I think... I would also go to war with Spain at some point for colonial war. Because I would take this off Spain. No, I was not colonizing this yet. I do have a big Canada up here. Where was I? Yes, I was colonizing out here. Beginning that, sorry, preparing to conquer it. And then at some point here, the Russians went to war with the Ottomans via a third party. Yeah. So it was a couple years, actually, before this, like in 1562, I actually broke my alliance with Russia, intentionally. Because I could see they were at war. And the thing was, by this point in the game, Austria no longer has the von Habsburgs on their throne. Russia does. France does. Russia has no heir. And so I claim their throne and break my alliance with them. Throughout the whole war with the Ottomans and everything, they still have no heir. They are the von Habsburg family still. And even though they ultimately broke the royal marriage and did get an heir, it was an heir with a weak claim, so I still had a claim on their throne. And then I went and beat up Denmark and Norway. And then here, I invaded Russia, blitzed through them as much as possible, taking their forts and everything, using my superior armies, and I only had like 15,000 manpower in reserve by this time. But I did get them in a personal union, as you can see here. Since 69. That's when the peace treaty was. Oh. Huh. The Austrians got the von Habsburgs back. They haven't had those in power for a long time in this game. And then France, we'll get to this, but France just fell into a personal union in 1608. I actually fought a succession war with Spain over that. Finished off Denmark, took a chunk of Norway, took these islands. At this point, Lübeck is my main trading port, though my capital is still over here. Still have Brandenburg. They're ultimately going to get annexed. Fighting England. Sligo starts colonizing down here. Eventually, I'll fight a colonial war with Spain. I'm still expanding over here. I actually invade this place, make them my vassal, and convert them to Protestantism. I finally annex Brandenburg. Russia's still being Russia out here. I've beaten up Poland and Lithuania a few more times. Second war against Norway. A war against Sweden here. I beat up Scotland. I beat up England. I finally took these off Spain. I started a colony here. France is still colonizing. I've taken Greenland. I colonized Panama. And then I do fight a few colonial wars. I'll eventually colonize right here. Fight a colonial war with Spain over these. Fight colonial wars with Portugal over this and this. Eventually Mexico. The Caribas and the Portuguese Louisiana will actually eventually gain independence. Without my help, I'll be invading them later. So this is what I hold in Europe. I think I'm the rank of Empire at this point again, because joining the Holy Roman Empire reduced me to Duchy. I'm definitely Kingdom by this point. I think I'm in Empire, though. So in about 1606, the French leader died, and they fell into a personal union with me, but I had a succession war with Spain, which Spain obviously lost. I think that's when I took these territories. And these territories. As I said, I did vassalize these guys, gave them back their land. They are Protestant. Well, this is my map mode now, but they were Protestant. And that was... As you can see, when I was colonizing over here, I began invading Malacca, taking the Spice Islands for myself. Now, what I do when I colonize in this game, I always send an army beforehand to exterminate the local natives, because that just saves a lot of unrest problems later on. You can see I beat up Brunei there. Actually, the second time I beat them up, first time to give these guys their cores back. This is about the time of the succession war with Spain. As you can see, I have held on to this since I was Holy Roman Emperor and beat up Burgundy. I do culture convert as well, that's why I took that idea. So that is now Prussian culture. Most of this is Prussian culture. These are Prussian culture. I beat up Portugal. Or, no, I haven't. Have I? No, I haven't fought the colonial war with Portugal yet. But that was coming up. I got a colony next to England somewhere so I could keep holy warring them instead of... it's down... It was here for a while, but... Eventually, I take that off Spain in a colonial war, so I can still border England for the cleansing of heresy Casus Belli. That's when That was the first war with Portugal. Was getting a chunk of Colombia. I took this off Spain so I could have a colonial nation down here. And really from this point, I'm not doing too much expansion in Europe. I've expanded a little. Verden is my vassal. The Netherlands are my ally. But I haven't really expanded here, except for a couple wars with Sweden. And, of course, wars with England to take this with Sligo. The real action is happening out here. This is post the Second Coalition War. That has recently happened. And the reason I couldn't throw the Netherlands under the bus in that one was because Hamburg was leading the coalition. Hamburg was the one who declared war. And they didn't want any of the Netherlands territory, and they didn't want the Netherlands to release any nations. So I did have to give some stuff up in that one. I made Sligo give a few provinces back to England. And I gave up a bit of territory out here. Because all of this... Because Brunei at this point before the coalition had been reduced to one province. Malacca had been reduced to this. These nations didn't even exist. And I was losing the coalition war. So I just returned some stuff to Malacca. Released these two nations because I didn't want to return anything massive development over here. Just low development. Release these nations as well. And that was just so that it wouldn't cost as much to core later. So I gave up most of this in the Second Coalition War. More than I wanted to, but... Well, that's coalitions for you. As you can see, Verden did get all this. I did eventually annex some stuff down here. That's currently how Sweden looks. Eventually I would reinvade England. At one point I came down and took Rome because I really needed extra missionaries. And later on, like near the turn of the century here, I would fight an imperialist war against the Mamelukes to get even more missionaries. Because my colonial nations are having some stability problems. I did fight a second colonial war with Spain by this point. Got that. The second colonial war with Portugal. Got that. And most of that. Would eventually do a war with England. Just a cleansing of heresy. But take that. And yeah. I have a merchant here collecting trade. And most of my other merchants are out here diverting trade to here. Though I do have a merchant here diverting to the Caribbean, one to the Caribbean diverting here, one in the Gulf diverting to the North Sea, one diverting from the North Sea to Lubeck, one collecting in Lubeck. I don't have one in the Chesapeake Bay diverting to the Gulf of St. Lawrence yet, though. As you can see, Russia has continued to be Russia. They are in a personal union. I gave them Finland, part of Finland. And that was to keep Sweden out of a third coalition. Yeah. Soon I'll that's right. And in the war with Spain and Portugal, because they were allied at the time, I took this province so I could continue to cleansing of heresy them. rather than just have to do conquest or colonialism. As you can see, what just happened up here, I actually, at this point, invaded Spain because I wanted more of their territory. Invaded them with a cleansing of heresy, which I sent the France and the Netherlands and, basically Russia to fight. And then I did a second invasion up here against England because Spain was guaranteeing both Portugal and England. And if I was going to fight Spain, I was going to take some more territory rather than just some wimpy territory. This war with Spain, I think I take this. But I invaded, blitzed through England here to take this. Because I did get a nation up here. And also to take colonies out here. Or maybe that was a little later. As you can see, Cuba and Florida got independence from Portugal. Ah, yeah, that was the war with Spain. Got all that. Took this for the colonial nation there. Took the rest of that. I don't actually, at this point, have a colonial nation here. Because I was culture converting these two provinces. Because when you take native tech provinces, there's no separatism. If they reform their religion, there's separatism. At this point, I have most of this. I have basically all of these islands. Just a few Portuguese and Spanish holdouts. I begin pushing up into Indochina and China. Vassalized Dolly. That was another war with Portugal where I took this off of them. I colonized that. I took all that off of them. I took that off of them. I got that from Spain. Took that from Portugal. And yeah, they're not the powers they once were. I did annex Sligo. Most of that is just trade company, because trade companies in all non-colonial regions is actually one of the best decisions Paradox has made. As you can see, I've finished taking pretty much all of that. I'm in the process of annexing them. Pushing up here. Got armies here, got armies here, got a couple armies in Europe just in case, and have a couple armies in the colonial area. As you can see, the independent Florida beat up Mexico. I couldn't do anything about that at the time. But it's around this time that I got the imperialism casus belli, because I reached Diplotech 23, and as you can see, I pushed them back. I took some territory to start a colonial nation there. I beat up part of Japan. And I've just been blitzing through China. This was my main theater of expansion here at the end. And that's it all. Good chunk of Europe, a lot of colonial nations, all this power, everything here. There's actually nothing left that I can colonize, so I've just had my diplomats improving my territory back here. And the reason being, these last few provinces that can be colonized, I can't get to right now. But yeah, I have the achievement. At some point, I was going to fight the Ottomans to get this back for Russia, but that never had to happen. Because I got enough money from over here. I have actually fought a war with Cuba. There's still a problem. I did take some of these islands off them. Now I'll just do a time lapse of each region. On a faster pace. Thank you for watching. And yeah. As I said, it was right here at the end when I invaded the Mamelukes to take Jerusalem and the Islamic holy sites. Because I really needed missionaries, and I also took the Suez just in case, and also Cairo because that was their capital and I could. Because specifically, my Brazilian colonial nation and my Mexican colonial nation, specifically my Mexican colonial nation, is really having stability problems. So I took the extra missionaries just in case. Alright, so that's going to be the end of this one. I'm going to end this stream because I just want each stream to be its own thing. I am going to stream just after, possibly, because I may try to start an Albania or Iberia achievement run.